tonight, up in flames.
Attended the scene in about 5 or 6 minutes and realized it was totally involved.
The St. Jacobs Farmers Market in ruins.
The roof had collapsed within a half an hour of us being here.
Dozens of vendors left devastated.
It's a livelihood for me and my family, plus it's a livelihood for a lot of my staff.
What's next for those who've lost their livelihood?
Our goal is to get these businesses up and running as soon as we can.
And looking back at a piece of local history.
My kids were raised here. They would come here every Saturday morning with us.
The memories and the magic of a market that drew millions.
The video is hard to watch, a piece of local history, a community meeting place, and a well-known tourist destination has been devoured by fire. Crews were called to the St. Jacobs Farmers Market just before 2 o'clock this morning. Smoke and flames followed by sirens pulled people who live nearby from their beds in the middle of the night. The fire, though, spread quickly. The building collapsed less than an hour after crews arrived. Today, there is nothing left. The market sits in ruins. 60 vendors were housed inside this building, selling everything from specialty foods to fresh produce, as well as crafts and home decor. The post and beam wood structure was 2 floors spanning 24,000 square feet. It has been gutted. We can tell you the initial damage estimate was approximately $1 million. That's now been upgraded to more than $2 million. Good evening and welcome to a special edition of CTV News at 6 o'clock. We are live in St. Jacobs tonight, where people are still struggling to come to terms with everything that has been lost. Beginning our team coverage tonight is CTV's Max Wark. Max, you've been speaking to fire officials today. What do they know about this point? What happened last night?
Well, Megan, at this point, the fire isn't considered suspicious. However, fire crews are looking at several possibilities and several sources, trying to determine a cause.
Woolwich fire crews responded shortly before 2 this morning. 40 firefighters from 4 different stations arrived within minutes, but it was already too late.
Most of the work was trying to protect exposures to the other buildings because the building was lost at that point.
As flames shot into the night's sky, a few dozen people stopped to watch the fire consume the building.
We saw like 5 torches of light, it seemed, so we went towards it. And then it was the fire coming out of the windows.
Within a half hour, Eilish Keshubek says the building's roof caught fire, then the structure collapsed.
And I just watched the whole thing burn down. It was like terrible.
Built from wooden beams, the market's first and second floors were open concept, allowing the fire to travel quickly and freely. Add 60 vendors selling quilts, clothing, and food, and you have what officials call a high fire load.
We have not gone into the interior to look at anything. It's still pretty hot in there, so we want to make sure it's safe beforehand.
Waterloo Regional Police detectives were on scene to rule out criminal activity. The Ontario Fire Marshal's office has been called in to investigate.
Now, the building was equipped with several surveillance cameras, and investigators say they'll be looking at those tapes, trying to determine a cause.
Neighbors saw lightning strikes in the area around 11 last night, but by 3 in the morning, the sky was clear.
I remember standing outside and looking up and saying it's nice weather for to be walking around in, actually, but it was a very thick fog.
Damage will likely touch the $2 million mark, adding together the building and the vendor's contents.
It's going to add up pretty quickly.
Fire investigators say the market's only salvation early this morning would have come from a sprinkler system, which this building did not have.
If it was built to today's code, but back then it wasn't required to be sprinkled. Fortunately, we had a fire alarm system installed earlier this year in there.
Now, the building is fully insured, and insurance adjusters were on site early this morning, and individual vendors should also be insured, and that liability may play a factor when and if the cause is determined.
And certainly we will continue to ask those questions as the hours and days continue to pass here. Thank you very much, Max. Well, incredible photos have been sent into our newsroom all day. They capture incredible images. Many of the people who sent them in smelled the smoke and heard the sirens. One viewer, Brent Mackey, captured these unbelievable images as the building burned to the ground. They are hard to look at, once again, especially for those who made weekly trips to the market to meet friends, buy fresh produce, and take in the sights and sounds. Suffering a big hit today are the dozens of vendors who woke up this morning only to find out they had lost everything. And CTV's Karina Sleds has been talking to some of those vendors today. Obviously, they are heartbroken, Karina.
Absolutely, Megan. Devastating is the word that many people are using to describe this loss. And several of the vendors who were out here today surveying the damage tell me that while the material items can be replaced, it's the loss of productivity while the market is shut down that's going to hurt them the most.
My goodness, unbelievable. It's just so hard to believe it's all gone.
Looking at the shell of the building they worked in for years, Nancy and Lloyd Kipfer can barely speak about all that's been lost.
I just feel for the people that lost all the things they did, and just...
They and several other vendors came out to survey what's left, trying to come to grips with losing the place that for many their livelihoods depend on.
Like everything is gone.
It's sobering to look at it. You know, it was here yesterday, and now it's gone.
It's overwhelming. It's devastating.
Abdullah Lewendi and his family have operated a stand at the market for more than 30 years. He says they're heartbroken, but it's their employees that they're worried for the most.
To have to tell my staff that have been with me for 15 years or so that we can no longer keep them on just because they're trained for this part of our business. It's overwhelming.
Sylvia Racine ran an antique booth for 12 years at the market.
We're all one happy family.
She says, ironically, the vendors had just held a party earlier this week to celebrate the end of their Summer Tuesday sales. But now...
It almost looks like, goodbye party for a moment.
But in spite of their incredible loss, many of the vendors say they're just thankful it was things that were lost and not people.
The material costs, like the things that we were insured for, it's irrelevant, it's minimal.
Merchandise, goods, whatever, we can all buy that again, that everybody is safe and sound.
And now as they look to the future, many vendors say it's their faith they'll rely on.
They have their trust in God and His control over things, and there's great comfort in that.
The one bit of good news for vendors, as Max mentioned earlier, is that most of their material damages should be covered by insurance. But again, it's going to take quite some time before they're back up and running as usual.
All right, thanks very much, Karina. Well, as the fire spread, so did reaction on social media. A lot of people expressing shock and dismay on Twitter. Overnight, Kevin said, "Gonna be a long night for St. Jacobs Volunteer Fire Department. God bless them." Carl Zenith Diva tweets, "Sending love to all the vendors and staff at St. Jacobs Farmers Market. You will be back and we will support you." Now, some of that support has already started to pour in. CTV's Lee Boyajian has been speaking to people in the community who are expressing support, especially for the vendors who have lost so much in this. Lee.
Absolutely, Megan, and nothing has been formally planned as of yet, but there are a lot of people coming forward already expressing that need to concern and the desire to help those who have lost everything and even those who haven't. Now, the Ontario Livestock Exchange will go tomorrow morning as scheduled. We're still waiting to see exactly how many people will arrive, though, but in the meantime, the Peddlers Village, the buildings behind us here that weren't damaged, they're still waiting to find out just when it will be safe to reopen.
Jessica Schott woke up to 7-month-old Emma Lynn this morning, not thinking she would soon be the one fighting back tears.
I actually feel like crying. I'm trying not to. I didn't think it was that bad.
Schott has been coming to the St. Jacobs Farmers Market with family for over 20 years.
It's all gone.
Shocked by the pictures she saw posted online this morning, Schott started the Facebook group Hope for St. Jacobs Farmers Market.
When I first made it, I wasn't expecting much of it, just hoping that somebody would see it to want to rebuild it.
Thousands of likes later, Schott is eager to turn the attention coming to the group towards the vendors who have lost everything.
This was how they made ends meet, and now it's gone. Now what do they do?
A few of the buildings weren't damaged in the blaze, but it's unclear when those, as well as the outdoor vendors, will be able to open. An investigator with the fire marshal's office says this area needed to be fenced off first in order to make it safe for the heavy equipment to operate.
Our goal is to get these businesses up and running as soon as we can. I mean, as with the community leaders, they want to keep these businesses going, and we absolutely want to do the same thing.
And while the vendors wait, hope, with support from the community, continues to grow.
Hopefully just raising that money back to rebuild and maybe make it better than it was.
Now, new Facebook groups are already popping up as well to try and formalize some of the fundraising plans. However, nothing is formally in place at this particular moment. A lot of organizers still waiting to see just who will be the most in need at the end of all of this. Megan?
All right, thanks very much, Lee. Well, joining us now is Sheila and Marcus Shantz. They are the owners of the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. Thank you so much for coming down here today. Obviously a very emotional day for you.
It has been. Yeah, I think we're in a little bit of shock yet. It was a difficult phone call this morning, but we've been on site most of the day working with the fire department and the fire marshal.
What are they saying to you about a potential cause? Do you have any idea right now?
We don't know what the cause is at this point. It's still under investigation, so hopefully we'll have some answers coming.
How has this day been for you? You've been talking with some of the vendors. They've been showing up here today, as well as members from the community. A lot of support for you guys right now. Are you feeling that?
We're definitely feeling the support, and we want to thank everybody in the community and just the care that's been pouring out. We really do feel it, and our hearts too go out to the vendors who have lost so much, and they're in our thoughts, and we just haven't been able to get to everybody and talk to them yet, but we're hoping to do that in the near future.
Absolutely. Now, Marcus, you were also talking about what's next for this market, and that you guys are planning to open the outdoor market on Thursday.
Right. We've just been able to determine that we will be able to be open on Thursday. They've fenced off, as you can see, the site of the building. The Peddlers Village building will be open, so there is some food vendors and also some flea market vendors there, and of course all the outdoor vendors will be here on Thursday. Finding a solution for the people who are in the building is very much on our minds, and that's one thing that we'll be working very hard on in the next few days. So.
Okay. What's your message to the community right now? The people that come here every week to do their grocery shopping or to meet up with friends, what do you want to tell them tonight?
Well, we're just overwhelmed by what a great city we live in and what a great community this is, starting with the firefighters, many of whom were volunteers who got up in the middle of the night and helped us out and really did a great job of keeping it from spreading. And the outpouring of support is really, we always knew this, but this is a market that a lot of people feel a sense of pride and ownership. It goes way beyond just us and just the vendors. It's the whole community, and so we're very touched, and all we want to say is thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, well, we really appreciate you both coming out here today. We know that today has been especially hard for you, a very emotional day. We will be talking to you in the days that follow as we try to answer the question, so thank you once again.
Thanks.
All right. Well, as investigators continue to try to determine what caused this fire, some people are asking, was it the weather? There were storms moving through Kitchener last night. Let's bring in CTV's Jennifer Ferguson with more on this. Jennifer.
Right. I mean, weather hasn't been ruled out as the cause of the fire at the market. It's still being investigated. So there was a stormy night last night. You did get those thunderstorms rolling through the area, and there was potential in those early morning hours as well for storms to develop. So again, still being investigated. We can't confirm at this point. As far as going forward to this evening, we are looking at overcast skies right now, and a chance for some showers again tonight, and a chance for some showers to send the kids back to school in. We'll have all those details a little later on in the show.
All right, thanks very much, Jennifer. And of course, we are going to have much more coverage here in St. Jacobs as we continue to answer questions. Coming up after the break, we're going to look at the history of this market and why it was so important to this community. Stay with us.
It's horrible. It's almost like heartbreaking.
We've been supporting it for years, and this is just devastating. I feel so sorry for the vendors, but more importantly, the producers, the people who rely on the sale of their fresh produce.
It's just sad to see it burn down. Like, I didn't really believe it at first when I saw it this morning, so we had to come down and make sure.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the fire that has destroyed the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. We are live at the scene with extensive team coverage tonight. Now, the effects of this fire will run deep. There's a broader community at stake here. Retailers fear without the market, shoppers will be staying away.
It is going to cut down on the leisure traffic for sure. About 80% of our business is corporate throughout the week, but we do rely on that leisure travel on the weekend per se, and with that, that's going to put us back a bit for the fall.
A lot of tour buses head there first and then come into town, so we really do depend on the market quite a bit.
I think it'll be a lot slower, especially on Thursdays and Saturdays, which are the market days, because those days are the busiest here. So I think it'll be probably a lot slower because basically all the tourists come, so they won't have much to see.
Now, joining me now is Mayor Todd Cowan. Thanks for coming down here today. Obviously, you've been very busy this afternoon. When did you first hear about this fire?
Well, I received an email in the middle of the night from the deputy chief that there was a fire here, and then it started really kind of ramping up around 7 o'clock this morning, where I was getting updates and pictures.
This is a big destination for this community. Losing this market, what does that mean for this local economy?
It's huge for us here. It's huge for not just Woolwich Township, but the region of Waterloo. We're known, it's more of an icon where people know about the St. Jacobs Market, not just here in Ontario, but worldwide. So it's a big hit to us, but we're very resilient. We're going to rebuild and bounce back quickly.
What's your message to the community? People are still showing up here at this hour. They're taking pictures. They want to see this firsthand. What do you have to say to them?
I think it's huge. I think it's history because people, have grown up with this icon here. And, when people come out, we are going to rebuild. We're a community that pulls together, not just in Woolwich, like I said, but in the region of Waterloo. I've had an outpouring from my colleagues on regional council, and also the Premier called me this afternoon because she was here just not that long ago. So it's something that means something throughout Ontario and throughout Canada. So we're going to pull together and we're going to rebuild.
What's the next step for you?
For us at the township, I mentioned earlier that there's always red tape when it comes to this. So demolition permits and stuff like that. So we're trying to call it the Scotch tape effect. So we're going to try to eliminate a lot of the red tape, where we're going to try to move things along quickly to help them, clean up and then start rebuilding with their building permits. So we're going to be helping whatever way we can.
Okay, Mayor Todd Cowan, thank you very much for coming down here. We know that you're busy today, so we appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Well, almost exactly 2 years ago, this facility was damaged. It was hit by high winds on market day. On September 3rd, 2011, the roof was ripped off the livestock barn, but no animals were injured. Witnesses say dark skies, heavy rain, and damaging winds hit the market mid-afternoon. Some people suffered minor injuries, hit by tables, flying debris. Environment Canada investigated and determined that it was not a tornado, but straight line winds doing the damage. Now, the St. Jacobs Farmers Market was originally known as the Kitchener Stockyards. Obviously, it has a huge history here in Waterloo region. For more on that, let's go to CTV's Nicole Lampa. She is in our newsroom tonight. Nicole.
Megan, one of the original owners, says that he never expected the farmers market to become such a tourist attraction. And he says all the friendships and bonds created over the past 3 decades will likely help rebuild what's been lost.
It began with the stockyards, when the farmers would bring their animals for sale, and it has grown tremendously since 1987.
When the doors to the building opened, the original owners of the St. Jacobs Market knew they had created something special.
At the time when we built it, I was sure that it would be a tremendous draw.
Locals flocked to St. Jacobs, and the market quickly became a tourist attraction, not just for the food, but also for a taste of the Mennonite community.
Didn't never expect that we would have people driving from Toronto on a regular basis.
I'm going to eat these on the trip home.
People have come from all over the country, like this woman from Saskatchewan.
Well, I'm here in Waterloo to visit my brother and sister-in-law.
There's also been visitors from overseas, like this family from Spain.
They come over for my daughter's wedding.
Over the past few decades, farmers, vendors, and customers have created long-lasting friendships, which will undoubtedly continue in the future.
And it will be that bond that will that creates the fabric, or has created the fabric, that will make that rise from the ashes, I think, pretty quickly.
So, Megan, what is known as the centerpiece of the St. Jacobs Market is now gone, but there is no doubt that it will return, and hopefully soon. Megan.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Nicole. And we will have more from St. Jacobs a little bit later on in the newscast. For now, we are going to send it back to CTV's Abigail Beeman for a look at the rest of the day's news stories. Abigail.
Thank you, Megan.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the St. Jacobs fire. As you can see, the curious and the heartbroken continue to file by to see for themselves the devastation. Obviously, the investigation is still in its early stages. We are joined once again by CTV's Max Wark. He has been speaking to fire officials all day. Max, for viewers who are just joining us, who may just be learning about this fire, what do we know at this point?
Well, we know at this point, Megan, almost $2 million worth of damages. Fire crews were called to the scene shortly before 2 o'clock this morning. 4 fire stations were called. More than 45 firefighters were battling this blaze. And neighbors and passersby say that within half an hour, the roof was on fire. Within an hour, the entire structure had collapsed. Fire officials briefed us at around the noon hour today. They said that the building did not have a working sprinkler and that combing through the rubble will take quite an amount of time. Now, the Ontario Fire Marshals has left for the day. Officers will be back early tomorrow morning. They're waiting for bulldozing permits at this point to comb through that rubble because they believe that the fire evidence for the fire investigation will be found at the bottom of the rubble. Now, what I can tell you is that they did have a working fire alarm, but again, not a working smoke alarm. At this point, fire investigators will be combing through the rubble for the next several days, and they anticipate that several teams will be going through the rubble, and it could take anywhere from several hours to several days looking for a cause and a clue.
All right, thank you very much for that update, Max. We really appreciate it. Of course, there are a lot of people who have been touched by this fire, specifically the 60 vendors who had their businesses in this building. Joining me now is Angela Ehrenberg. Angela, your daughter actually had her business inside here, Cupcakes. When did she find out about this fire and what was her reaction?
Well, she was up early, which is unusual on a Monday holiday morning, and just happened to check her Facebook feed, and it was all over the place, and she was just in absolute disbelief, couldn't believe it, and kept checking to make sure that it was our market and our building, and just absolutely shocked.
Now, what did she lose in this fire? You said that she's had this small business for 2 years, that she's worked so hard to get to the point that she's been at. What did she lose yesterday?
Well, yesterday in the building, she has a fridge, or had a fridge and a cooler, a number of sentimental things, little knickknacks to do with her business, and certificates and things that she'd been given over the years and that. So things that she didn't make. Her product wasn't there, but certainly things that she needed to run her business.
Now, during the break, you were telling me that she has seen so much support from the community already, that people have been liking her Facebook page today, but also putting in orders for cupcakes. What does she have to say to her supporters right now?
Oh, well, she's just absolutely overwhelmed, and she'd like to tell herself, but she's feeling a little fragile right now and that, but she's just so thankful. There have been so many people, jumping into the Facebook page and liking it, and orders coming in online, and just thank you to everyone, because, just the expression of support is just overwhelming. It's just amazing.
Absolutely, and we hope that the dozens of vendors who were also in that building with your daughter are experiencing the same support tonight. Thank you so much for coming down here. We really appreciate it. Obviously, an emotional time for you and your family. So best wishes to your daughter, and I'm sure we'll be speaking with her in the coming days.
Very much.
Thanks, Angela. All right, and we are going to send it back to CTV's Abigail Beeman in our studio now for an update on what else is making news today. Abigail.
Well, as we've been reporting throughout the news hour, the St. Jacobs Farmers Market has been devastated by an early morning fire. The main building destroyed. CTV's Megan Furman has been anchoring our coverage from the market and joins us now with the latest. Megan.
Well, Abigail, this is truly a devastating scene here tonight. As you can see behind me, there is nothing left of the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. Fire crews were called here just before 2 o'clock this morning. They arrived within minutes, but it was too late. This building collapsed less than an hour later. 40 firefighters were on the scene. Damages are pegged at $2 million. At this point, it is not considered suspicious. The fire marshal's office has left the scene. They are expected to return tomorrow with a bulldozer to go through that rubble. There are reports of lightning in the area. That will be part of their investigation. As we mentioned earlier in the newscast, 60 vendors were housed in that building, and they are devastated tonight. Of course, we will continue to cover this developing story, and we will have the latest tonight at 11:30. Abigail.
All right, CTV's Megan Furman at the scene. Thank you. And as we say goodnight, we will leave you with some more images of the fire. Thank you for joining us this weekend. We'll have the latest at 11:30. Good night.